So again, welcome everybody on the 1st of June, World Milk Day. And for the second year, we are organizing Youth World Milk Day. And because of that, we want to share some insights of what the future of dairy and what the current dairy sector is doing at this moment with new generation.
Here we are on the dairy farm of family De Knij. I am Marjolein and I work on this farm with my parents and my fiance in the southwest of the Netherlands. We have 110 dairy cows and 70 hectares of land, and I also work at the dairy company Vreugdeneel. I think milk is very important, not only for now, but I think its value only gets bigger in the future. And that's because of the nutri rich of the product, but also because of the scaping and maintaining of the area in harmony with our nature. Water buffering is also a good example of this, and I hope we will contribute with our company to this in the future.
Hello everybody! Bonjour tout le monde! I am Yolène. Let me introduce you to Noélie. We are two sisters involved in milking sheep in Aveyron, south France. There are three main areas of sheep milk productions in France: Corsica, Basque Country, and here Aveyron and the other region around Aveyron. Sheep milk is the dairy production of the dried areas, and that's the reason why sheep milk is well developed around the Mediterranean, Italy, Spain, Greece, Romania. In our area, Aveyron, around 2,000 farms produce sheep milk. The Roquefort PDO cheese is the main product, and the Roquefort can only be made here. It's a unique cheese. That is the oldest cheese appellation in France, in Europe, and probably in the world. It's a blue cheese made with raw milk. That means that it's an unpasteurized cheese. We are very proud of it and its terroir. Me and my husband are farmers. We milk 250 ewes. Nowadays, that's quite a small flock in area around. We feed the sheep with hay, grain and concentrate on an organic way. The rest of the year, the sheep go outside almost every day, except when it's raining. By the way, they eat a lot of grass. To diversify the production, Jean-Charles, my husband, has owned a craft beer made with the same barley as the one for the sheep. I have taken over the family restaurant on the farm. If you want to taste the cheese and other local food, come and visit us. I am involved in a collective project gathering 6 farms, seeking to add value to our sheep milk. We work together for 5 years now, and we are planning to launch our own hard sheep cheese with raw milk in the upcoming months. I work in the beautiful village of Cambrai, and I can't wait to let you discover a unique know-how. Hello everybody! Bonjour tout le monde!
Hello, welcome. I am Dorike and I'm from the Netherlands. And today I will show you our dairy farm. But we don't have a regular dairy farm, we have a camel dairy farm. Almost 15 years ago, my partner Frank started with a camel farm. He bought 3 camels, of which 2 were pregnant, and started milking them when they delivered a calf. That worked out fine. camels are pregnant for about 13 months. After 13 months they give a calf, which is quite easy. They don't have any problems with calving, and then they start producing milk. So we try to keep the camels for a long time. They produce milk for about 1 to 2 years, and then they go back to the stallion again, often a different one, so we don't get any inbreeding. During the summer months, the camels go outside in the pasture. They graze the fresh grass and they really produce a lot of milk, which we really like, of course. Close to the dairy camels we have their calves. They always need to see and smell their calves, because otherwise they will stop producing milk. So here are the dairy camels. There are the pregnant dairy camels. And here are the calves. As you can see, they really enjoy the Dutch rainy weather. This is our milking parlor. We milk 8 camels in one time. This is our doggy. We cannot milk her. The special thing of our milking parlor is that we can milk the camels on this side, and then we can keep the calves with them on the other side. So all our camels have their own calves with them when we are milking them. That is how we can produce milk in the most natural way. Most of the camel milk we process ourselves and sell it directly to the consumers. We sell it as raw milk in bottles, we sell it as processed milk, and we also sell it as milk powder. Besides consumers, there are also a lot of tourists coming to the farm. We have a group accommodation which can house 10 to 14 people, and we also have a lot of touristic activities for the people coming here. So I hope to see you one day at our farm, and have a good time. And remember, there are always new opportunities in the dairy sector, so please find your new opportunity yourself or get inspired at our farm.
Thanks very much to all these great speakers on the video. I think this shows a great example of how diverse actually dairy is. I walk through these houses all the time and look at the cows, and you drink usually a pint of milk and you think it's cows, but it's a lot more going on in dairy. I think richness, especially all the female character, I have to say, is showing that this is a very flourishing sector. And because it's World Milk Day today, I would like to invite Jeroen Elvis, who is here. Like I said, we organized this together with Global Dairy Platform. The chair of Global Dairy Platform at this moment is the CEO of Friesland Campina. I think Friesland Campina, for Dutch understanding, is quite a known company working on dairy. And I would like to see if it's possible for Jeroen to share with us how dairy at this moment is looking for you. But also, how does the role of youth it's important for Friesland Campina, and maybe what does such a day like this mean for you personally? I don't know if there's any decoration in the Friesland Campina building today, but let's see if that's possible. Can I give you the floor, Jeroen?
Yes, sure. I hope you can hear me.
Excellent.
Great. Okay, thank you. Well, a good day to you all, depending on where you are, somewhere in the world. Actually, I am in Amersfoort at our office in the Netherlands, speaking there. And yes, there are events going on at our office as well. So if you enter the main building today, you would have a warm reception and warm welcome, of course, celebrating the World Dairy Day, but also our great dairy products. So you can't miss it when you come to our office. Let me introduce myself first. So my name is Jeroen Elvers. I'm working in the dairy sector since 2004, and I have been through various positions in the world, and also in this company. As you may know, is a large cooperative. So actually, it's a big multinational in dairy owned by farmers. Actually, we're on the balance sheet of our member farmers instead of the other way around. And we operate in many parts of the world. We export to over 90 countries. Indeed, an important day. And it depends also, I suppose, from where you are in the world. I travel a lot. I spend a lot of time in other countries, Africa, Asia, Pakistan, Nigeria, etc. And simultaneously, when I go back to the Netherlands, you see that there is no day that dairy is not in the news, in positive ways, but also sometimes in negative ways. Environmental topics are extremely important at the moment. So sometimes it feels that dairy is being scrutinized, not only dairy, but agriculture in general. And as soon as I travel to other countries in Southeast Asia or Africa, that's completely different. Then you see, actually, it looks like a lot of these countries are just discovering dairy and the dairy sector. So from the past, most of these countries were involved in the import of dairy products, but actually you see that the majority of the countries that traditionally imported a lot of dairy are working on backward integration for several reasons. That means they're setting up their own dairy sectors to create employment, but also to become more self-sufficient on dairy. They also appreciate the high nutritional value of dairy. Also you see that in these countries, the chilled chains are more being developed. So that means it's more easy to basically produce dairy, produce milk, as well as to process it and to bring it to the market. So you see that we live in a kind of two different worlds. I would say Europe versus, or the European Western countries versus the rest of the world. And that's a complete difference, I would say. But still exciting every day. So I hope that I've covered quite some of your questions with this.
Yes, thanks very much. And we'll definitely come back to you later, Jeroen. But I think this already relates to a lot of the topics we are going to dive into. Like we said, it's World Milk Day. Please, if you're coming in, mute yourself. Thanks very much. And of course, this is initiated. I don't know if everybody knows it for a while ago by the FAO. So their platform is hosting this. Personally, when we were organizing this, we already experienced the element that Jeroen is sketching out. I think from a Dutch perspective, there are people saying, okay, why discuss or promote the future of milk? We shouldn't have cows anymore, etc. And on the other side, I think we need to feed a planet where milk and dairy is a very interesting and important element. But we're going to dive into this. There's a lot of activities going on today. There's a Youth World Milk Day event in Nigeria. I know some of you on the call already have some activities. And I would like to invite Jack, who's a dear friend and partner in this, to share a little bit from his perspective in the middle of the night, actually, but also what he's doing on Youth World Milk Day. Jack, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Xander. Hopefully everyone can see my video screen. Xander, I'll just check with you. Can you see it? Excellent. Yes. Pleasure to be here speaking to you from the evening here in New Zealand. We are ahead of the world. It's my evening on Youth World Milk Day, so we've only got 3.5 hours left. and it's a pleasure to spend the end of the day with you all. So thanks for having me. I've been given a 5-minute speaker slot, so I'm going to keep it as quick as I can. But to kick things off, those of you who aren't familiar with Aotearoa New Zealand, I'm going to play a short video for you.
We've got wonderful pasture here, great soils, great sunshine, and lots of water, so that provides all the nutrients we need to produce high quality milk.
When you're trying New Zealand cheese, you are tasting New Zealand. Flavours that you've probably never ever tasted before.
We act as the kaitiaki, a good steward, someone that's going to look after the land, not just for this generation, but generations to come. We love nurturing and feeding the world.
And so Xander asked me to speak today about what we're doing for Youth World Milk Day in New Zealand. And so I'm going to quickly cover off the 3 key topics that we're covering and a few interesting statistics along the way. So aligned with Youth World Milk Day, we're looking at economic, talent and succession, and the environment. And so for New Zealand, dairy is hugely important. It produces 19 billion New Zealand dollars of export per year, which for some countries might not be massive, but for New Zealand, it's actually almost 50% of our entire export value that we receive. And so on Youth World Milk Day, we're going to have Fonterra, who is the largest dairy exporter in the world and our largest company in New Zealand, doing a presentation for a group of children at a local high school, which also has a dairy farm on it in the middle of our largest city, Auckland. Talent and succession. 40,000 jobs are directly related to the New Zealand dairy industry, and hundreds of thousands of more indirectly related in New Zealand. And so for a population of about 5 million, that also contributes significantly to the roles and career opportunities in this country. And so for Youth World Milk Day, again, on the same farm show day, we've got an organisation called Dairy NZ, who is the industry body for the dairy industry in New Zealand, who are going to be talking about all of the career opportunities that there are available. And one of the challenges that we do face in New Zealand, like many other places in the world, is the aging population of farmers. But we have got some pretty creative and unique ways to get more young people involved on farms. So if anyone is interested in learning a bit more about succession and the challenges on with succession on dairy farms, then do feel free to reach out to me. And the last point is the environment. Obviously critically important in the world of climate change that we're currently living in, and food production contributes a significant amount to this around the world. One thing that we do like to boast about a little bit in New Zealand is that we're one of the most environmentally friendly dairy producers in the world. And so a study that was conducted last year showed that we're producing 0.77 kilos of CO2 equivalent per kg of fat and protein adjusted milk. And that's about half of the industry average, or of the global average. And how New Zealand does that is by being really, really efficient with growing grass and with pasture management on farm practices. So our farmers have really excellent digital uptake, and they really focus on combining with their science sector. But that being said, there's still a lot of opportunities to improve. And so the last part of our event on Youth World Milk Day, we have a combination of the City Council, Fonterra and Dairy NZ, all contributing and explaining how farmers are continually being regulated and incentivized to improve their environmental footprint every day. So there is a quick few minutes snapshot of the New Zealand dairy sector and what we're doing to celebrate Youth World Milk Day. We expect to have about 100 young people come over to this farm in the middle of our biggest city, and we're really excited for that, except it's the middle of winter for us, so we're hoping we don't get any rain. I'll pass back to Xander so we can keep on time, but you'll be hearing from me a little later on to talk about the future of dairy as well. Thanks, Xander.
Thanks very much, Jack, and absolute great to see a visual on what's going on in the country. We're all sitting behind these screens, but the landscape is totally different, in which we all work on dairy and dairy development. Just a small elaboration on what Jack just showed us, because like he said, it's about economic, it's about succession, it's about sustainability. We're going to into the next part of our program to have a panel discussion, which is, I think, a very fancy word for a good conversation and to share examples and opinions on how to work on these common goals, which is a future for dairy. One of the things why we call it a panel discussion, I want to take this on because on these 3 topics, which we harvested from young people and young farmers across the globe, we want to engage. So we want to engage after Youth World Milk Day, also in socials, sharing more videos about what this sector is and what it makes beautiful. But also to see what kind of challenges can we take on a global or international level to create impact for young people in the regions, to enable them to take a more sustainable and great dairy future. One of our big partners who are we doing this with is the World Food Forum, and just a very short introduction to that, because I think for most of you on the call, it's very interesting to relate to more activities. The World Food Forum has been initiated last year by the FAO, the World Food Organization. That's one of the UN bodies looking at food security and good food for all on this planet, in which all these member states we are working from are collaborating on. Last year also, not related to it, but also there was a UN Food System Summit in which there was also some discussions and sessions with young people across the globe. And one of the elements also there was on the line that there's quite some criticism on the sustainability of dairy and the future of dairy. So this is why we are also working on that and trying to take this to the UN tables to see what we can do there with this input, but mainly make sure that all these countries are where you are from, where young people are from, to create impact with the knowledge that we are getting here and maybe the opportunities. So to go right across the globe on the diversity and of the input we want to take on, I would like to take the opportunity to give Sylvester from Nigeria the floor to start from, and start our panel discussion. And of course, please introduce yourself while starting in this discussion. And people, if you want to add questions or add comments, please add them in the chat so we can give you the floor after these speakers. And Sylvester is working on an interesting dairy project in Nigeria. So please, Sylvester, introduce yourself and show what you are facing, and maybe in the end, defining what's your biggest challenge. Is it succession? Is it nutrition or sustainability?
Thank you very much, Sandra. My name is Sylvester Oshodi. I'm the founder of Zander Farms project here in Nigeria. Zander Farms is a dairy farm. It's a newly established dairy farm in Nigeria, and it is born out of the need to have a backward integration, which the government has planned for the Nigerian dairy sector. The likes of the big players in our country here is the Allahs of this world, the freedom campaigners of this world. They have been mandated to help the system develop by doing a backward integration, and which has also opened that space up for individual investors to come in and take a share of the dairy sector. So the farm is strictly for the production of raw milk at this stage. And what we are doing is to ensure that we set up a farm on a sustainable basis, and that will be also be on a commercial basis. You know how capital intensive the dairy sector can be. So if we want to go by the way of the small older farmers, we won't get anywhere. And that's why right now in Nigeria, there is that push for people to come together and establish commercially sustainable dairy farms. Let me put on record here that in Nigeria, the gap in demand is 60%. It's established according to a survey in 2001 that Nigeria will require 1.6 metric tons of milk. But at the moment, the country only is able to produce 600 metric tons. you can see that there's vast opportunity, not only at the raw milk production stage, but also at every point in the value chain. The farm is aimed at, providing that initial, bridging that initial gap of milk production. When we have advanced at that stage, then we would go ahead to processing and all of that. I'm sorry that there's a background noise. I'm also attending a work midday event here in Nigeria. So I'm trying to juggle the two meetings since this is virtually. I hope I can stop at this point in time.
Thanks, Mayor Sylvester. I think you're well heard, and we have some cows making noise here as well. But maybe the last question: what is your biggest challenge? Is there a lot of young farmers needed? Is it the valuing of the nutrition, or making it a sustainable dairy farm?
Okay. From the analysis that myself and my team carried out, is actually in the area of technology. It's in the area of technology. When you have technology, the financing part of it would easily, come in. But when it is very scarce to have access to technology, then to do dairy on a sustainable commercial basis becomes very, very difficult. We have identified that most of the foreign countries, I'm glad that you are partnering with Lily, who are masters in the act of milking machines and all of that. They are very careful, forming partnerships with the West African, sub-region. I don't know why, but I hope that with these interactions and discussions, they will reconsider their stand and see that there is a huge market out here. I tell you that if we have the presence of any of these big players in terms of milking machines here in Nigeria, they will have a lot of people keying into their products, and they will also in turn generate more revenue from support systems, spares, and all of that. But right now, we have to travel all the way to South Africa and Kenya to be able to get technology into Nigeria. I think that's a major challenge. By the time we have the technology, certainly we can build capacity to meet up and run this technology. But when the technology is not available, then doing dairy in Nigeria will just take us back to the smallholder farmer technologies, which Zana Farms is trying to, improve upon. We don't want to do anything manual milking, anything small scale milking. We want to do it on a large scale using a milking machine from a trusted supplier from your part of the country.
Thanks very much, and we'll definitely hope to host you here, but give you a tour in this part of the world to see what's happening here and how we can connect. I think the Dutch can do that on technology level. Thanks very much. We'll definitely come back to you. I hope that Nikki is also there. Going from Africa to India, I think there's quite an interesting period been going on about farming in general in India, but also in dairy. And I know Nikki already had a group of youth in her farm, which I saw on the socials. Nikki, can you take the floor and maybe introduce yourself and answer in the end the same question? What's the biggest challenge for you?
Hi, hello everyone. Happy World Milk Day, and I'm really happy to see you all. So I am Nikki, and I'm the founder of Mango Dairies, and I'm involved in dairy farming in village of North Indian state Uttar Pradesh since 2014. So my journey in dairy started. Even I was not aware of it, but eventually when I realized that milk being such an important commodity for Indian people, and as you all must be aware that India is the largest milk producer in the world, but the situation in Indian dairy is very stressful because India owns about 65% of world livestock population, and per cattle milk productivity in India is amongst the lowest in the world. So we have 65% of world's livestock population, and our milk productivity is extremely low. So we are very, very inefficient when it comes to milk production, and that is a very huge challenge in terms of sustainability. So India is paying a very huge cost in terms of sustainability and environmental cost that is coming up. So I decided to take the lead in the sector, and in 2014 I started the commercial dairy farm. It was a very difficult journey because again 85% of our milk is produced by farmers having just 2 to 4 cattle. So it dairy overall is very backward, and we don't have enough organized dairy farms in India. So when I started, because dairy farming is so backward, there was no knowledge on efficient processes of milk production, and everything had to be done on my own. So it took me several years to, understand cow nutrition, cow breeding, cow management, cow comfort, everything. And slowly, I started getting support from, developed nations like the Netherlands. I'm so glad. And like I'm also getting support from the PUM Netherlands. Their dairy experts, they came to India and they trained me a lot on, efficient dairy practices. So this is how we are learning and we are progressing. So yeah, India is facing huge challenge when it comes to sustainability. We are world's largest producer, but we are also most inefficient, and we really, need to work very hard if we have to mitigate the impact of climate change and, environmental costs that we are paying and bearing. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Nikki. And what's the perspective for you? What would be the thing you need the most to take the next step on your own farm, or maybe you see a trend or what's needed in India?
Yes, so I think yes, we do need leadership. So because I didn't get, so I took it on my own, and we need to really motivate people, educated people into dairying, because see, sustenance without milk is very important commodity for us Indians, because we are largely vegetarian. Our protein, calcium, all requirements, major nutrition requirements are satisfied from milk. So yes, we really need to promote organized dairy in our country. So I think everyone, be it government or maybe national, international organizations, they will have to come together and be really serious about promoting organized dairy farming in India. Very important.
Thank you very much. We'll definitely get back on that. Next speaker is quite close, and we're fighting here, as some of you are experienced with the flies who are trying to take over. But very glad that Mariah could join. Also because I think she's experienced from the Dutch perspective. On the one side, I think there's a lot of criticism on farming in general and also in dairy, and then again also try to take a position for young people and young farmers to deal with this and take on the challenges of the future. Please, Mariah, can you take the floor, introduce yourself, and maybe share your perspective from the Netherlands?
Okay. Well, I'm really happy to be here. It's really nice to be with young people all involved in farming and discussing with each other. I'm a young dairy farmer from the Netherlands. I live in the middle. I have 10 cows, and I took over the farm 5 years ago. I sell my milk to Friesland Campina, and about 2% I sell directly to consumers through a milk. I did a NUFFEL scholarship, so I traveled around the world to visit other farmers. So I really like also meeting farmers around the world and learn from each other. And at the moment, I do, besides my farming, a board membership of the NRJK, that's the Young Farmers Organization in the Netherlands. And I do advocating the voice of the young farmers. And if I look at the Dutch perspective at this moment, I think for us the biggest challenge is to take the step from the past war period, making efficient food production to a more sustainable system. Maybe that's just as big a step as it was in the period previous war. A cow is breaking down the shed here, but never mind. And it's a real big challenge because some people in the Netherlands think the way to face this challenge is to just stop dairy farming. So yeah, part of some people in the Netherlands think to face the challenges of sustainability is by stopping dairy farming, where we as young farmers think we can be part of the solution for biodiversity, for example, sustainable food production, bringing manure to crop farming. We see a lot of things which dairy farming brings, which makes the world more sustainable. And I think for young dairy farmers, besides the normal issues like access to land, having enough capital, for now the biggest challenge is to find support in being part of that solution and finding a helping hand by the government, but also by people around you in making you be able to face those challenges.
Cool. Thanks very much, and please bear with us with the technical details here. But this is always going on, the work in a dairy farm. Julie, you are also on the call, and thanks also for bearing with us. I know some farmers go milking in the morning at 4 o'clock, but if you're able to sleep in, you have that. So thanks very much for joining us, and maybe introduce yourself and share with us your perspective. Thanks very much.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to invite me. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. So it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm Julie Bissonnette. I'm a dairy farmer in Quebec. So it's a part of Canada. So that's why I speak French. It's the only part of Canada who speaks French. So that's why my English is not so good. And at 5 in the morning, it's not better. So I will try to you understand me. So first of all, we have 50 cows in milk and 100 animals. It's me and my husband, and I'm also the chair of Young Farmer of Quebec, and also vice chair of Canadian Young Farmer Forum. So I'm also involved. First of all, in Canada, we have the luck to have supply management for the milk. So all the producers together do the commercialization of the milk. So I sell my milk to the dairy producer association, and they are doing the supply of the management of the milk. So when someone is far from the factory, he pays the same transportation as me if I'm near. So that's a good thing, because in all the country, in Canada, we are far from each other. So sometimes someone who is very far, he pays the same thing for his transportation milk as me. So that's a good thing to sure that we are all in the territory. So that's the same thing about the price, the marketing. We put everyone put money for marketing. So together, all the producers, we are doing marketing together. So that's a good thing for young farmer also, because we sell our milk to the association. So this morning, I know that my milk will be I will have a price that is everywhere almost the same, but so that's a good thing. We have quota, so we make sure that we have the it's supply and demand. We have to make sure that we have milk for what consumers want. So that's a good thing for young farmer. It's easier to make sure that we have access to market. So that's one thing that I want to bring this morning. Also, we have winter, so that's a challenge. It's not a issue, but it's a challenge because we need to make hay, corn silage, grain, and the winter takes up part of the year, so we have to work with this also. As a young farmer in the future, our challenge, some are already says about climate change for sure. Since 2, 3, 4 years, we really see this every summer. Like a lot of rain and no rain for like 2 months. It's very opposite. Sometimes it's it's beautiful and no rain, no. So we have to make hay, and that's why the winter we have to make hay like when it's summer. So that's harder, but it's a challenge. So and young farmer are there to make sure that challenge are. We have to work against this, so that's a good thing. Also, water management, make sure that we have water. It starts to be an issue, and like we says already, land access, technologies access. For young farmers, it's a lot of money, so and access also we need to have it. So with the cash flow, all this stuff, it will be a good challenge in the future. And also with the climate change, every farmer of Canada are committed to reaching net zero greenhouse gas emission from farmer level dairy production by the year 2050. So that's another thing we want to make sure that we are doing great. And at the end, I will say young farmers needs to be involved because it's our future. Challenge are big, and if we are not, like the one before me says, if we are not part of the solution, it will not start. It's every day we work with cows, we work with lamb, and if we are not part of the solution, it will be hard to make sure that every day we are working well. So like the research, innovation with the government, we have to be involved. We have to work with them to make sure that the solutions are good for us. So and that's another challenge because we young farmers have not really a lot of time, but we have to take it to make sure that our future will look like we want. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Julie. And maybe a last additional question, like I also asked Nikki, is what would be the first thing you would say that you would need to take on these challenges? I know you're also related to farmers organizations, so you probably have also a view on what tools or things are going on, but is there something you are missing, or because identifying the challenge is one, but how do we solve it with young people?
That's a good question. For like climate change, water management, all this stuff, I think that we need to be we need helps for the government, but we need to be they have to work with us and to make sure money is always the big thing there, to make sure that a lot of money are there, but to make sure that they work together. And because alone at my farm I cannot make research on water management, on climate change, to try new things. It costs a lot of money. Research it's a risk. We have to make sure that is it working or not. And as a young farmer, it's a lot of too much risk for me personally. So that's to be involved and to work together. For me, it will be a solution.
Thank you very much, Marije.
Yeah, I wanted to add a question. What is really a challenge in the Netherlands is the discussion about Are we going to put everything in legislation? So is the government going to tell to the dairy farmers how he or she should keep their cows and should dairy farm? Or are we able to put the goal, the objective to the farmer? For example, a certain goal for climate change or a certain goal for biodiversity, and we leave it to the farmer how to reach that goal. And that's a discussion we all the time have with the government, because we say, we are farmers, we can do it, but just give us the goal, don't tell us how to get there, because that is going to be really hard to put in practice if you work with nature. Do some of you recognize this challenge?
Also that's the same thing now, to make agriculture is important. Food, with the pandemic, we saw that also, to make sure that we eat locally, but we have to make sure that environment we are right, water we are right. We have a lot of things to do, instead of just be sure that at the end of the month we are doing milk. I think that we like land. We are taking care of our land, and we don't put too much things, and it's our land, and it's for generation. It was before and it's after. So that's the same thing. It's easy to say, oh, we want food from locally, but after we have to. They put a lot of things on the farmer to make sure that he's doing right, this thing. And at the end of the year, it's a lot of things. And is it for the farmer or for the consumer? That's another thing. So, yeah.
Thanks very much, Julian. A really interesting question and answer. And please, all, if you want to add to that answer from your perspective, please do. I'm putting the previous speakers in the shared screen so we could have a further discussion on this. And by inviting to do this, maybe Jeroen, hearing this, I can imagine that there's a good cooperation between Friesland Campina, because farmers, and we also are part of that cooperative, by the way, here, are part of the company. What are the challenges for your position on Friesland Campina, hearing these young farmers on sustainability, knowledge gaps, etc.? Is that something that's on the agenda, or that you see companies like yourself doing, or what Friesland Campina is doing?
Yes, I suppose you can hear me. Yes. Well, so listening to all the topics is definitely, it's high on the agenda of Friesland Campina. It all has to do with the license to operate. As mentioned by many, is that we're in globally, I think we have the biggest challenges as human mankind. On one hand, we have an enormous, fast-growing world population, which we have never seen before, which means that there is a big need for good quality food. So with high nutritional value. On the same hand, we have a huge challenge together as human mankind on the quality of the air, the soil, and the water, and how do we deal with that? And that in some cases that creates a conflict of interest. One thing is for sure, if you look to the basic needs of human mankind, is safety and food. Look to what's happening in Ukraine as well. That doesn't mean that you can jeopardize the quality and the environmental topics. And I think it was mentioned by Julie and also Marije, is that it's the keepers of that land. And if you look to the farmers, and dairy farmers in particular worldwide, is that together the biggest owners of land on our planet. And that means it's on they have the capabilities, but also the basic need and the purpose to assure that land is being given to the next generations in a better state than they got it, assuming that it stays within the family. And that is why we, as Friesland Campina, we have a program, Nourishing a Better Planet. And that is focusing on the important elements of sustainability, so it's energy and climate, but also biodiversity, it's also animal health and welfare. So it's the all-round integrated way. The thing is, we cannot do that alone. And Friesland Campina, yes, is a big cooperative, but on a global perspective, we heard about India. If you look to those countries, India, Pakistan, China, etc., then in that essence, our member farmers is just a small number. So that is why it's important. We see sustainability as a pre-competitive topic. I make quite often the comparison with airlines. Airlines do not compete amongst each other on safety. If you compete on safety records, you all have to strive for the highest level of safety, because that is good for the sector as a whole. And we see sustainability as the same. So that is why we put a lot of efforts and energy in pre-competitive collaboration on sustainability, like the Global Dairy Platform, that's on global level, but also at national level with the Sustainable Dairy Platform, where we work with the representatives of farmers and the Dutch Dairy Association, etc., but also with expertise centers like Wageningen University and other universities worldwide. So I think that the most important one is that we are not scared to share knowledge and expertise on sustainability, that we do not see it as a differentiator to compete amongst each other on sustainability, but actually that we embrace each other and cooperate on that challenge. And if so, and if we achieve on those innovations, and that could be everything. So I love the examples given this morning on the goats and the camels, but also on the technology and the way you approach the market. But the more we share and collaborate, the bigger the chance that we will tackle this huge global challenge together. I don't know if that's an answer to the question, but that is how we view it.
Definitely an answer, and I'll leave it to everybody, of course, what you like about it or what you like to add. Maybe also a question to you, because I think it was also mentioned, finances, of course, are also a challenge for everybody. I think from a Dutch perspective, I can say at this moment, the dynamics in milk price, what we talk about every day, maybe, is at least changing. I'll leave it to all the others to say if it's changing for the good. But is there something that Friesland Campina could use in this? Is this also a dilemma on the government who's pressing, or would you have a help question which maybe new generations can help Friesland Campina with?
I'm not sure I understand your question, but if it relates to finances, is that actually...
That's an example. I know that's something that young people address.
Yeah, well, financing is a very important one, and so that is why. But at the end of the day, we all together, all farmers worldwide, basically produce for consumers, and at the end of the day, it's the consumers that need not only to talk about the importance of sustainability, but also to value it. And I know that for many countries, not only in the Netherlands, but also like the example in New Zealand and Ireland, but also Africa, a lot of in India, etc., a lot of effort by farmers is put into sustainability. At the end of the day, it's important that actually there's a return on investment on that sustainability, because that motivates to do more. And if you, at the end of the day, invest a lot on sustainability, either it's on green energy production or on buying, acquiring more land or whatever, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's important that the consumers, these billions of consumers, recognize that and do pay attention to it and pay for it. That sounds very cheap, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, in most of the countries worldwide, the prices of food, and I'm not talking about the last half year due to inflation and price rises, but if you look over the last 40 years, that actually the amount of people pay of their income on food has gone down. And so the relative percentage, and that has to shift. And food is elementary. It's the foundation of everything we do. And that is, I like very much also the example of Sylvester from Nigeria. The challenges as a country of Nigeria completely different than to the Netherlands or New Zealand whatsoever. But simultaneously, there we know the population is growing extremely fast. There are about 200 million people there today, expected to grow to 400 million in 2050. So imagine doubling the total population in a country that today does not have the infrastructure to collect milk, to process it, and to bring it to the market. As said by Sylvester, mainly dependent on the import of dairy products. And that needs strong collaboration in what we call the Golden Triangle. And then I will shut up. It is the collaboration between the government, the public sector, and the private sector. It's like Friesland Campina or Fonterra, etc., and knowledge centers. And that's the universities and other knowledge centers. And we know from the past that if there's a strong collaboration in that golden triangle, then you can make really leap jumps forward.
Thank you very much for that elaborate contribution, and it's very appreciated. I think very interesting for everybody. Maybe Julie, and in the meanwhile, there's cows coming in that you can hear. Maybe Julie, you were asking also about this cooperation, this discussion with government. Is that something that's common in Canada on this cooperation with governments, like this golden triangle?
Sorry, can you repeat about
the golden triangle that Jeroen is talking about, like working together intensively with knowledge institutes, governments, together with the sector? Is that something you recognize?
Yeah, but it's more about association of producer, about our government is not. It's very a producer things to make sure that the supply management we sell our milk to the producer association, so it's not with the government, but government have to make sure that it's a Canada thing. We cannot have milk from other country, but it goes like this with markets in the international way. But it's a thing that government have to protect our supply management in Canada. So we have to work with them, but they are not involved in the quoting and supply management. So I don't know if it's the good question.
No, thank you very much. It's very valuable. I'm seeing that Silke, and sometimes it can be more Silkes, and it's Silke herself wants to contribute. Please take the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you all for speaking. It was great hearing from all of you. I saw that there was some questions in the chat from Robert. And also, if we were talking about this golden triangle, I think it's more of a circle with all sorts of factors involved. Rob is a vet from the UK, and he had some questions on sustainability. So maybe Rob wants to ask them themselves, or should I read the questions out loud from the chat? Oh, I think I'll ask his questions from the chat. So Robert first had a question for Jack. In New Zealand, Jack showed a figure of 0. Rob is there.
Hi.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Thank you. I think, yeah, my question to Jack was, that was a really impressive low carbon figure for the milk production in New Zealand. And I just wanted to ask whether the calculation included anything for sequestration. That was the main question.
Yeah, good question, Rob, and thank you very much. I would have to double check if it does include sequestration. I expect that it won't include soil carbon sequestration, as that's not currently recognized in New Zealand, but there are a lot of plantations across New Zealand farms, That being said, to be able to qualify for carbon offset, that also has to be meet specifications around size and types of planting. So my estimate is, or my guess is, that there would be some sequestration involved, but I'll have to double check and let you know, Rob, for to be certain.
Thanks very much. And this is also a goal of today, is that please interrelate and connect after this event. If there's no adding comments to this discussion, we'll change over to our next part. Already put in the discussion was the challenge of this changing world with consumers and their opinion on dairy, but also consumption patterns, which might differ in different parts of the world. But I think if we look at the Netherlands, there was a brand launched, I think, Friese Vlag, who are working on non-dairy milk, which they're putting out there. There's loads of discussion on television here, at least, on should we still have cows in the same way we have them right now. Our next part is a little bit about this, and they weren't able to be here at this session, but they did share a great video that I'm going to put forward for you. I think it's interesting to see that their name is Vegan Cowboys. You can interpret that in all sorts of ways, but I think they're pioneering on the way we can produce dairy, and I think it's an interesting discussion to follow. But I'll put their video first on screens to hopefully inspire you on this discussion.
Happy World Milk Day. My name is Hille van der Kaa and I'm one of those vegan cowboys. And in those vegan cowboys, we make cheese without the use of a cow. Oh, well, we have our very own stainless steel cow. Her name is Margaret. Isn't she lovely? We work with Margaret in a biotech farm in Belgium. And this is how she works. To start with, we feed Margaret with grass. She then makes casein out of the grass with the use of microbes. You can compare this with brewing beer. And after our stainless steel cow made the caseins, we use plant-based fats to make the cheese. So in the end, our cheese is exactly like and just as delicious as a traditional one. This whole process is called precision fermentation. You have several companies all around the world who do merely the same. Maybe you know some of them, like Perfect Day or Remilk. We differ from them as we use grass as a starting point. You all know this is one of the most efficient and sustainable crops. And moreover, it can grow everywhere. We believe in a future where dairy farmers can take out the living cows and replace them by stainless steel cows. By doing this, we could save up to 10 times the use of water and up to 5 times the use of land. And our stainless steel cow Margaret will reduce the amount of methane and CO2 in the air as she doesn't burp or fart. Furthermore, she doesn't need any medicines and she can work all day and night without getting tired. We now make casein on a very small scale, and we expect our cheeses to hit the market in 2026. In case you are interested in what we do, you can go to our website or follow us on LinkedIn or Instagram. Or if you just like to have a chat or to learn more, please drop us a note. We would love to catch up. So thanks again for having me and enjoy your World Milk Day.
not sure if this is common or known by others from outside of the Netherlands. I think it's been in the news quite a few times, and interesting documentaries on the discussion on milk production, on having cows. We're very pleased that they are sharing this information with us. I don't know, one of the initiators also from the vegan butcher we have in the Netherlands. One project I thought in the past, it's interesting, but it's not really going to catch on. But as Unilever bought this brand and is producing this, I think it's a relevant player. So you can see that niche developments can really turn out to be very impactful. To discuss this further, I would like to invite a new speaker at our table physically here in the Netherlands. I'm going to hope that it's going to be hearable and audible for you. His name is Sergio. He's from Lely, which is a company that also, you can't see it in the back, is making those robots. And I think has turned with other robot producing companies, but the way of milking, and especially also on the data they collect and can use. So Sergio, maybe you can introduce yourself and maybe also respond to what you've just saw, and maybe it relates to what Lely is doing. But
yeah, well, really nice. Thanks for having me over here in the barn. And I think doing this online is great, but being here in the barn is just the best thing that can happen. And of course, for me to just hearing the Lely milking robots, but also hearing the cows real life, it's great. So thanks for having me over. I'm from Lely, as Xander said. For those who don't know Lely, and I hope all in dairy do know us a little bit, even as I just heard the gentleman from Nigeria referred about it, we make milking robots, but even more. So we make all sorts of automation that makes life for the dairy farmer easier. But our vision on dairy farming, and I think that's the topic that we talk about today, so the future for the youth in dairy, we really believe in a sustainable, enjoyable, and profitable future in farming. So not only enjoyable, the fact that the robot is milking for the farmer, but also that it's enjoyable, but profitable in the end and sustainable. And I think, well, what we just heard, we hear a lot of positive sentiment in this group. And I think that's really important, because we also believe in a prosperous future in dairy. And yes, there are a lot of challenges when it comes to emissions and sustainability. And yes, consumers are really watching us and looking over the shoulder of the farmer. But as we believe in it, and it's our mission that we bring technology to the market to make life for the dairy farmers, and especially for the next generation, the youth, even more prosperous and better. And I think the robot is an example there, but we see a lot of other examples, like the data you just referred to. We have a huge amount of data, which is now only barely being used. You can imagine with all this data about the wealth of cows, we can also improve the life of cows, raise efficiency, and also prove what we do when it comes to sustainability. There's a lot of innovations, and if there's some time, I would like to refer about it, reducing nitrogen, reducing all sorts of other emissions. Personally, I'm involved at Lely with what we call the Lely Orbiter. I don't know if anybody from abroad knows about it. I hope in farming here in the Netherlands, people have heard about it. We also believe that we have to close the gap between the consumer and the farmer. A lot of misunderstanding is that a lot of people who buy milk don't even know anymore that it's a product being made here at beautiful farms from a cow in a very good way. People have a really bad understanding about it. So we made the Lely Orbiter, and what we do, we produce the milk on the farm, and it's bottled within 24 hours. So we really say from grass to glass within 24 hours. And it is our mission to then, well, bring all this milk within this very short period to the consumer in the neighborhood. And we believe, well, if we contribute to stuff like that, there's still a good future for dairy farming, and I hope for the next young generation. Does it answer your question a bit?
No, absolutely. And then there's interesting things going on. So the next question is popping up in your head while you're talking. But thanks very much, and we're definitely going to go back to innovations you talk about. But because it's interesting, if we look at vegan cowboys, there's two elements, I think, to it, which I find sometimes confusing, because there's a sustainability challenge on how we produce and a license to produce, and how you can make that cost eligible in the product you sell. But on the other side, there's also a changing world with changing consumption patterns. And I think if you look at it from a youth perspective, it's lack of insight of what's going on also in the farm that I've heard a couple of times before. Does the data also contribute to that, to show to the world what's going on?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's also the task of the next generation, and even of the current generation, to make sure that with the storytelling, but also not just storytelling, but proving this by data towards the consumer, closing that. So you don't only show a picture on Instagram smiling together with a cow and saying, now I'm closing the gap to the consumer. In the end, if you really bring your proof points, if it's about the life cycle assessment, as was said, or if it's about, I heard in New Zealand, the impact they have, the methane reductions they can do. If you can bring that into the consumer, and also bring all the good things that milk brings when it comes to nutrition, and explain it, data is crucial there.
I said, and what I'm quite curious about, and I'm doing all these things at the same time, so don't pay attention to that. But Mariah is smiling, so I'm also going to ask her. But because, and this is, I think, a Dutch perspective. So I'm privileged to look around the globe on dairy and how society looks at that. But I would definitely, that's why we are sitting here. There are definitely things we can improve here, or in which people who come to this farm would say, okay, I would like to have that differently. But I believe, and we at this farm believe, that that can make us stronger with that knowledge to improve that. But there's also a movement, I think, in the Netherlands at least, that if you are open and you share all these things, you might be vulnerable. So don't share any of these stories. That's what I would like to ask Mariah. You've been busy quite a lot, I think, in the Netherlands at least, on these topics. How do you experience that? How do you cope with that challenge?
Well, if it comes to data, I think that's a topic which was, when I started with the Young Farmers Organization, nobody talked about it. That's 4 years ago, and now everyone is talking about it. So it's really like a hot topic. And what I think for the farmers is really important, that the data is going to be used in a way that it has positive effect on the farmers, and not only on the organizations and businesses around the farmers. I think that's something we have to go for, but if you just keep it for yourself, it's not going to pay out at all. So we have to make it open and share, and make sure that we get the benefits from it. And if it comes to myself as a dairy farmer, I'm also really interested in data on the soil, because we already made a cow is taking down
eating the decoration here.
But we know a lot about the cow and about milk, but we don't know so much about the soil and the land and the grass. So that's also some hopes I have.
Fully agree.
Maybe Lee is also diving into that.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, that the data, when it's prosperous for the farmer, now even with new software, we can already predict a bit if ketosis is coming for a cow just beforehand, and treating a cow earlier. And in the end, that's, I think, if we focus on stuff like that, not only the consumer, it will be prosperous for the farmer and the way they farm, and in the end, their sustainability, but also their profitability. So I think that's really important. Fully agree. And the soil, I think there's the next challenge, and a really interesting one, if you can connect it all to data.
Thanks very much. I see Jeroen raise his hand. Please take the floor and add your question or comment.
Yeah, yes, but building on that remark on data, also on what is being said earlier, is data is, if you want to innovate, and if you want to bring the sector to the next level, then we need to unlock more data. And also, building on what Mariah is saying, is that it is unfortunate if data is being used by commercial parties. There's nothing wrong with being commercial. Every farmer is an entrepreneur as well. But that data that is from or for the farmers is used for different purposes. That is actually one of the reasons why a cooperative, a data cooperative, has been established in the Netherlands. It's called Joint Data. And the majority of the Dutch farmers, not only dairy farmers, are a member of this cooperative. And basically they determine on the individual level if certain data is being used, and if so, for what. But also it gives opportunity for different players to unlock that data. And there's enormous amount of data. And if you can interlock and connect all that data together, then you get to true big innovations. I'm making a very strange comparison, but the biggest innovations in the world come from an industry, which is the porn industry. So PayPal or transactional type of innovations, people do not know, but actually comes from the porn industry. And why? Because they know everything about us. They connect the data on everything we do on internet or etc. So it's a bit odd comparison to compare the sector, but actually we can learn a lot from that sector on how to use data to make innovations and make leap jumps. Thanks.
Thank you very much to that comment. And I don't think it's a strange comparison, by the way. If I relate to young people, the industry that they are driven by is the ones with PayPal and all these technology and Silicon Valley kind of developments. But also they are, I think, hesitant in how transparent they are and how it all works. And that's something I'm still curious about, because I do believe in the power that data in communication and in image-wise could contribute, because it also involves and attracts a lot of young people, if it's consuming-wise or working. But I see also a movement that a lot of organizations in the farming in general, at least, they rather don't share because they're afraid that people will say, okay, but if you share that, that's another big point to say, okay, you have to do better or different. How can we deal with that? Because I think that's also for future generation an argument to say, I'd rather not go further in the dairy industry because there's so much criticism and I want to share my data, but I won't do because there will be somebody at my farm knocking at the door. I'm very curious, is there something you can add to that? Maybe it's a feeling, it's a gut feeling that keeps you driven, okay, I'm still going to do this, but how do we deal with that? How does Friesland Campina, not as the brand itself, but it's a big company, there's a lot at stake. How do you deal with that?
Well, as I said, we're one of the founding fathers of this joint data, of this data cooperative, because we knew and we know that data and the use of data is an issue with a lot of the farmers. So who's doing what with my data? There's a reluctance, which we do understand. And that is why part of that setup of that innovation is this model where basically farmers need to give that approval on an individual base for what and when this data is used. So with that, you tackle the issue. But simultaneously, we think that we have to use good examples of innovations that come from data and to show that example that is the way forward. Is that the example of the vegan cowboys or Orbiter. You could see Orbiter as a threat to the big factories and the big processing capabilities that we have. We don't. Actually, we have been in talks a lot with Lady about it. We see it as very interesting, intriguing innovations, and we're following it day by day. Why? At the end of the day, I'm employed by Friesland Campina, and the main purpose, of course, is to assure that farmers and future farmers have a solid income. And if concepts like more plant-based protein production instead of animal-based protein, or technologies like Orbiter are a way to provide a better income for these farmers, then definitely that's the right way forward. And so I think that we should be less defensive and more forward-looking to all these type of innovations. Yeah, I use a phrase always internally is steal with pride. And I don't mean literally steal, but take all the good examples and innovations and try to combine it and to make ways forward. Because one thing is for sure, the sector's changing, the public opinion and the society is changing, etc. We cannot withhold that. We'll have to deal with those developments and make sure that that we make use of that in our way forward.
Thank you so much, and I totally agree. And from my perspective, I think especially new generations can play an important role in that. And I think it was also mentioned. I think it was Nikki was saying that we need leadership, and I think this is something that relates to that. Before we go to the next part and the last part of this program, I saw a question of Sylvester, and I can relate to that. When is Layli going to Nigeria?
Sander, you need to unmute yourself for we can hear Sergio. Oh, Sander, we can't hear you. Or we can't hear Sergio when Sander's muted.
Thank you.
Yeah, is it possible now?
Yeah.
Well, I just gave the answer. Sorry, Sylvester, but no, I'm kidding. As just said, I'm really glad you asked the question. If we go to a country, then we have to be sure, if you bring this high technology, that we have the infrastructure to be 100% sure that we can support all the farmers there. And at this point, we gradually move from country to country to well, let's say, bring the gospel of robots to the world. For now, Nigeria is not yet on that map for next year, so to say. But for sure, it's I cannot name a date, but I hope we will come to Nigeria too. But it's mainly why not at this stage that we believe we have to do it gradually and ensure for 100% that we can support the farmers when we bring the technology. And that takes time.
Is there any response from you, Sylvester? I know you are coming to the Netherlands and to Belgium, so you're definitely going to meet and
come and visit a farm. You're more than welcome. So it's,
absolutely. You might be frozen, Sylvester, in your connection.
Richard, for your response. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, this is
can
better.
You hear me? Okay, so that was what I was told when I had that chat with your team on Instagram. It's more about providing after-sales support, which I understood from their perspective. But I look forward to really coming to Nigeria someday, because there is vast opportunity in Nigeria. And let me also commend Mr. Elfaz about the works of the Friesland Campino in Nigeria. I've been on 2 webinars with their team in Nigeria, and they're doing fantastically well, reaching out to smallholder farmers, trying to ensure that they also take sustainable practices and all of that. So, but I must tell you that the dairy industry in Nigeria is huge. We have the challenges, but right now the government is looking towards a national dairy plan that would make investment in that sector, come up with a better ROI. So we look forward to one day, maybe it's Zander Farms that will first use your robot in Nigeria. We are very optimistic and we are coming there. Thank you.
Sounds like a great vision, Sergio shared. Excellent, and I like this also because personally we are looking. My fiance, you saw in the video, but we hope to create facilities and infrastructure on this farm with young people in this network to create these kind of collaborations, not just young people amongst themselves, but also the leaders who are looking for them, but also are able to help them. So very glad to hear that these kind of practical things are going forward. moving as we are with fast going hours to the last part, a little bit wrapping up and summarizing, but giving the floor to a couple of others to share their general view on how they look at the future of farming and maybe address what's needed. What kind of instruments or challenges do we need to take on so we can take this on with our partners that who are organizing this together with us. And making suggestions for that, I would like to give Aya the floor from IAS, which is a very proud partner in our event, and they represent a great amount of young people eager to start working in this sector. So please, Aya, can you introduce yourself and share your vision on the future of farming and dairy?
Thank you, Sander and Silky, for the invitation. I am Aya, I'm part of EIS, which stands for the International Association for Students in Agriculture and Related Sciences. I am currently in Germany, but I'm originally from Morocco. So these are two different continents. Growing up in Morocco, milk was a very important thing in our daily life. We also know different types of milk, which are mainly animal-based, from cows, sheep, camels, goats, and also from donkeys sometimes for cosmetics. But moving to Europe, I saw that there was also the plant-based milk and the vegan milk, and it's very common. And many people are asking for it and trying to substitute the animal-based milk with the plant-based one and the industrial one. I have studied climate change and its impacts on food security, as I have also studied nutrition. So I know that some animal-based food cannot be replaced with vegan food or plant-based food, but I also know the effects of livestock on the environment and that we should lower our meat consumption for a healthier diet and to reduce the wastes and the emissions. So we're living in a dilemma where we have to find a balance between a healthy diet, between keeping our animal-based food because they have some essential amino acids, to have some proteins that we need in our daily life. Otherwise, we will suffer from deficiency, but we should also know how to produce this animal-based food so as not to harm the environment. And at the end, I think as a representative of youth, the future of milk is not clear to me because there are technologies, there are investments, there are also some people asking not to invest in it anymore. So it's up to the decision makers to know how to invest in it in a sustainable way so people are convinced to keep asking and demanding it.
Thank you very much, Aya, with sharing this. And is there a specific element what you see for students or young people in education to say what needs to be addressed? Yeah, because you are making this observation, could there be something done in education, do you think, to help this?
In education, they mainly teach us how to produce milk, but not really how to the transition to a sustainable production. So we also know how good it is for our health, but we don't know what the plant-based one does. I think there is a lack of information in our courses. Maybe they're outdated, maybe people don't renew their courses and their information. So I think we lack some information that we only gather from conferences, webinars, and when we attend some events like this and we learn from specialists. But on an academic level, I think we still need more research.
Yes, and most of these activities are outside of the curriculum, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that the eagerness and the passion you have on joining this switch between the curriculum you have to follow to get to diploma, I think that's excellent and great to see. I know IAS has a lot of effort on these kind of activities. Also exempling a similar initiative and also I think an interesting vision on what should the future of dairy entail. Jack was a speaker already, but is also part of the IFAMA Young Board, which I know I was able to judge a part of it relates to the student case competition every year they have, the conference, and I think it was mentioned already. It was a great case, I think, on the vegan ice cream last time. For me, it was an eye-opener that something was going on like that. But maybe, Jack, please share your vision and also, of course, promote what IFA, my young board, is doing and can do.
Sorry, I was just having trouble unmuting myself there, but hopefully you can all see me and see my screen again. So thank you to have me present again. I actually got surprised seeing my name in the timeline twice, so apologies those who are getting sick of my face. But again, I've got only 5 minutes, so you won't have to listen to me for too long. So a lot of what I was interested in speaking about has been talked on. And so I've got 3 key points that I put up on the slide here. And there's this crossover with so many different parts of the conversation that earlier speakers have spoken about. So I'm just going to share my insights and opinions on a couple of those places, all on this topic that I've been asked to talk about, which is the future of dairy. And the first one, which you can't spend 5 minutes on the internet without seeing these days, is alternative proteins, cellular agriculture, or what's most specifically in the situation of dairy, precision fermentation. And now this area, and we've seen an example with the vegan probably today, is very interesting. There's beautiful singing, but a little difficult to compete against. And so what is really interesting and important to note around precision fermentation is, though it's the technology is increasing exponentially in terms of its efficiency and its cost efficiency, it's also in very early stages, and some of the obstacles it has to overcome are significant. And so if I just, in this little bit of time, give you one example, the perfect day that Xander talked about, they've been able to get yeast to create casein protein, and that was also in the Vegan Cowboys example. And yeah, you can code to produce a casein protein, but when you do that in milk, in the mammary gland of a dairy cow, casein as a protein is a complicated aggregate of 4 different casein proteins, which undergo a complex post-translational modification, and that's using mammary enzymes, that some of which we've never even identified yet. And that creates a biostructure called casein micelles. So if you know what even 50% of the words are that I just said, then you probably know almost more about it than me. But what I'm trying to get across is it's not as simple as it seems. And so when we see a lot of different comparisons around dairy milk produced from animals, or milk that's produced through precision fermentation or plant-based alternatives, what's really important to understand is that nutrition is complicated and food chemistry is complicated, and often there's a lot of really beneficial parts to the nutrition from animals that you can't get from all these alternatives, and that is a very, very long time away, because science has a long way to catch up on some of those areas. That brings me on to my next point. How can we feed a growing population in the future of dairy? Well, precision fermentation may play a role in giving us some of the fundamental building blocks of base nutrition, but we also have to be very careful when we're comparing those products, as we've talked about. And another element is plant-based dairy. And so with plant-based dairy, again, we hear a lot around how the efficiency or environmental footprint of plant-based dairy might be better than animal-based dairy when you compare it per kilo of protein produced. But it's not that simple, as we just talked about. And so when you're talking about comparing a kilo or a gram of protein from a cow or a camel or a goat or a deer versus a soybean or an almond, often that protein isn't as bioavailable for humans as it is when it comes from an animal source. So that means that you're not actually getting the nutrition that you think you are. And even if it says on the back of a carton 1 gram of protein in your plant-based milk versus 1 gram of protein in your dairy milk, the dairy milk is actually going to be more bioavailable for you as a human based on the way our digestive system works. Again, it's more complicated than that. It depends on your own specific diet, your gut bacteria, and all sorts. But as a generalization, you can actually compare how efficient dairy proteins are. And what does all this complicated science stuff mean? Well, it means that there's a very bright future for animal dairy because it plays a really important role in global nutrition as the world continues to grow. So how do we make sure that this efficient form of nutrition is something that plays a part in some of these biggest challenges and opportunities of the world? And that comes to my third point, an optimized production system. So what we expect to see going into the future is that more and more farms will be heading towards efficiency to a state that can get them close to, if not carbon zero. And that's through a lot of the regenerative practices that we're seeing be implemented, but regenerative practices that follow truly best practice farm management so that they are genuinely efficient and using science. But what else can you do other than just making your farm efficient through trying to do regenerative practices? Well, something that Jerome talked about is really important through the join data example. And being able to leverage technology to make farms more efficient is something that we're going to see grow and grow and grow. And around the world now, it's not uncommon to be able to walk into a dairy farm shed and there isn't any people in there, but the cows are still getting milked. As we have automatic robotic milking machines, automatic cow collars, which are getting cows to come in from their pasture or go to the milking shed at the right time. And this automation and robotics is something that I expect we will continue to see in the future of dairy. And finally, there's a lot of interesting science coming out too on the daily. Just last week, we found out some new research that there's 3 different personality types of cows. And if you treat your cow based on its personality type, it will be happier and produce more milk. We've known that part for a little while, but the personality test part is new. So there's a lot of very interesting things that will happen across technology, across biology, and across nutrition. And all of them will have a part to play in the future of dairy. So hopefully that hasn't added too much complication, but a little bit of interest to what you might see as the future of dairy, and a pleasure to be able to speak with you all today.
Thank you, Jack, for sharing this. And I know you're also very committed and passionate about it. One question from my side, which I experienced in this discussion, is quite challenging sometimes. I'm also triggered by your word of optimizing production. And I know, at least from a Netherlands position, we have been doing that for a long time, but that's also the critical element in the system. As do we optimize for economic benefit, or is optimizing also giving other returns than just the financial one? Is it, what was your intention on sharing this?
Yeah, Xander, that's a brilliant question. And optimize is kind of purposefully triggering. And what I think is important is that optimizing will always change. And in New Zealand context, environment is critically important, and financial economic sustainability is critically important. And we also have a really strong cultural component related to the indigenous people of New Zealand, the Māori. And so we actually have most farms that have to meet social obligations related to our indigenous people. So it's more complicated than even a trade-off between environment and profit. So when we talk about optimizing, that will change on your context, on even personal preference. But what we are able to do, especially with improving technologies, is set the limits for optimization. So if we know that the hard limit on sustainability is going to be a carbon zero farm, that's one threshold you can optimize within. If we know a farm has to be environmentally and economically profitable, that's your second part of your optimization system. And then if it has to meet its social criteria, that's your third part. And so optimization can be a dangerous word, but what's really important is setting the parameters of optimization to make sure that there's not unintended consequences, and to make sure that it has outcomes that consider kind of all 3 legs of that sustainability stool.
Thanks very much for the addition. And I also see the relation to what Sergio and others were telling on what the possibilities of data could offer in this. And also the challenge on other factors like the soil quality, etc. Rounding off, and I do want to give the attention to and the floor to Marije, because I know, and this is literally the question, I think you might be handing over your tasks to somebody else. And I'm very curious what's on the list, what you hope that's going to be taken over by your colleagues working on this theme on young people in agriculture, in dairy. What would you hope, what's on the top of the list that needs to be done to create a future, or and maybe a little bit how the future looks? But
yeah, I think on top of my list, I just made my list. So what's really on top is having fun in being a dairy farmer. Because if I look at young farmers, it's now there's quite a lot of negativity, and we need to get back to fun. Otherwise, we're going to lose the young dairy farmers. And I think we need two things for that. The first one is getting the balance for our circular agriculture. So dairy farming has to be part of how do you say it, like the agriculture system, which is in balance. So everybody has to know why we need dairy farming and why it's so important. And the second thing is the appreciation by your own community that you are a dairy farmer. And I think we need both technology and getting close to nature to do that. So it's not one of those, it's a combination of those.
That sounds excellent, and it personally resonates a lot, and what we hope to try in the future here. What would you, this is not an evaluation on today, but what can these elements like World Milk Day, getting young people involved, contribute to? You have been advocating for young people and involvement. You talked to all the important people in the Netherlands and further probably. What on that aspect could be improved or is missing, or is it going like you want it to go?
I think to be able to reach those things I said, you need a really strong network. So you need organizations, a government, universities, but also dairy farmers around the world who share knowledge and try to create this, let's say, future, creating new technologies like Lely is doing, but also farmers in maybe other areas who are facing, if I look at Jack and I see his number on CO2, I'm really curious. I want to learn from him. So you need this network to, in the end, to be able to take those steps as dairy farming as a whole.
Yeah. Thanks very much. And I think that's on our shopping list. And as we are approaching our last minutes, as I think you also have to be open for things that come along the way while you had plans how to end a program like this. We had a great suggestion of Jeroen to end this up, I think, in a great manner with a view on dairy. So Jeroen, maybe a little elaboration why you want to show this video, but I have enabled you to share your screen if I'm correct. So please take the floor.
Yes, thank you. I will try to put it on screen and hopefully it works. Also on the sound. We spoke a lot about different countries. Also, Nigeria was a couple of times, and also Jack, for example, mentioned also some specific challenges in some countries, like Nigeria as well has, as an example, about 20 million Fulanis who are pastoralists. And they keep cows mainly for meat, as an example. So yeah, we can talk about plant-based protein, but if you have more than 20,000 cows mainly kept for meat and there's no milk collection structure related to it, how do you deal with that? So it is far more complicated than a lot of people think. It's not being against plant-based protein or whatsoever, but it is how you build up integrated dairy value chains. I hope you can see my slide actually. This is a model that we developed, that we apply in many countries, Pakistan, and some other countries in Asia. This is also the model that we use in Nigeria, basically. And I need an integral approach on breed, genetics improvement, feed, farm management skills, quality and hygiene, water and energy, also access to finance. And at the end of the day, you need to be able to collect the milk and have enough volume to do so, and to process, of course. And to elaborate and to give a nice example, we have a little video, and I hope it works. Otherwise, I will stop it. And also the sound. It will be 2 minutes. Can you confirm you hear something?
Yes.
This little movie relates to a big project in the southwest of Nigeria.
My name is Moyosoro Olatunde Rafiu. I've been into cattle rearing for 10 years back. I came across Prisoner Campaigner 2014. They were the one who actually introduced me to dairy development. What we are doing before is just breeding, rearing of the cows, fatten them up and sell.
Over the past 9 years, Friesland Campaigner has made a huge investment in the dairy sector through the Dairy Development Program. We've been able to build bulking centers, milk collection centers. We have trucks, small and big trucks, ranging from 3,000 liters to about 17,000 liters carrying capacity. We have also invested in equipment in the laboratory, where we are able to do first-time real test quality from grass to glass.
TwoScale is an acronym for Towards Sustainable Clusters in Agri Development. What we do here, we first organize the farmers and then we train them on how to improve the quality of milk that will achieve the standard of the company. And also we train them on how to increase productivity per cow, so that we are looking at the volume and also the quality of the milk.
For our dairy development program, it's extremely important that our farmers are able to connect with us, and we are also able to connect with our farmers at the same time. The women are now able to send their children to school. They're able to even give more nutrition to their children. There's a saying which says, empower a woman, you've empowered a whole nation.
Every one of us wants 70,000. Nílé wa báyìí àti lẹ́ni tó ń tọṣẹ, alẹ́ni tó ń tòróró, alẹ́ni tó ń ta magí. Kò sí wàhálà kankan, ìfẹ́ la fi ń gbé báyìí, kò sí jà láàrin wa, tá bá jà á pera wa sí meeting, á bára wa sọ̀rọ̀. Ó fi mí lọ́kàn balẹ̀ pé ọjọ́ ọ̀la wa ó máa ṣe déédéé jù báyìí lọ.
An angle where we are not looking at before, through artificial insemination done for us by Friesland Campaigner Co. under the DDP program. We are now producing milk and we have a market selling the milks too. With that, it improves our livelihood for having our turnover from milk production.
Tẹ́lẹ̀ àní business kankan sí lẹ́yìn iṣẹ́ màálù yẹn, àwa náà ti rí nǹkan tó jẹ́ nǹkan rere jẹ lára company yìí, nítorí lára company yìí náà lèmi fi kọ́ ilé yìí.
The Dairy Development Project supports the Sustainable Development Goals in many ways. The last 5-6 years, we focused a lot on private sector development, whereby we look at companies as drivers of the economy. They're the ones that create jobs, they're the ones that create revenue. The thing is, it has to be done in a sustainable way.
Èyí tó tún tẹ̀lé ọmọ mi ọkùnrin ìyàwó ẹ̀ àwọn mẹ́ta yẹn gbogbo wọn ló bá mi fojú síṣẹ́ mo ṣe fi wọ́n sí ibẹ̀ yẹn táwọn náà bá tún yá Ọlọ́run fún wa lẹ́mìí gígùn iṣẹ́ yẹn náà wọ́n lọ lágbára Ọlọ́run.
The dairy space in Nigeria is quite big.
The mission that we have is to provide quality dairy nutrition to Nigerians. We want to develop dairy in a sustainable manner. You cannot do sustainable dairy business if you don't have the sourcing from the local farmers. We continue to be on this journey and we continue to work closely with authorities. We've seen some commendable success and we would be happy if other people can join us. It is very important that we drive this agenda on dairy development consistently so that we can go to the next level.
Thank you very much, Jeroen. I think that's an excellent way to close off this session, sharing these literal images on developments in the world and the connectivity we hopefully can contribute to, but you already also have. I would like to really thank you all a lot. Also the partners working in this. We are pioneers, so we believe that there's a future, there's potential of young people not being unlocked. And we need current leaders to work on this and to help unlock this for a sustainable future. We will continue after today taking that shopping list and see what we can do that. At the World Food Forum, which we'll be initiating, there will be World Food Forum national chapters where you can relate to soon from your own country, because I think the networking is a very big element to keep your ambitions going and take steps in that. And I think we can end with please do have fun and share that fun in farming and in dairy. And thanks very much for now. Have a great World Milk Day and I hope to see you soon and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.